G'day guys, welcome back to SuperCoach with DR and welcome to the Round 9 Stock Market video. Hope you're all having a cracking week so far, and what a big week it is when it comes to SuperCoach. We have a little bit of everything going on leading into round 10. We've got some underperforming premiums, we've got some injured premiums like this man down the bottom, Jack Steele. He's given me major headaches, only owned him for 3 weeks, and all of a sudden he's gone for 6 to 8, an absolute must trade out. In my opinion anyway, I think it'd be crazy to leave him on the pine for that long. We've got Max Gawn, certainly underperforming. If you're a non-owner like me, you're licking your lips because he should be at a bargain price in the next couple of weeks. Many of us are Bruce owners. Do we even bother about going up from Bruce to Gawn? Well, I'm not too sure. Brucey's been ultra consistent, but I think that Gawn at the end of the day is a must-have in our rack line and someone that we must finish our sides with. We obviously got 3 bubble boys this week as well. Now, finally, we've got 2 defensive options that we can downgrade to. We've been wanting this for a fair while, and look, it's a little bit frustrating that they're both available in the same week, but it is what it is. We can't complain too much. So we've got Thompson there and Buku Kamas as well. Really exciting player at the Doggies. And this man up the top, Greg Clark, he is an absolute must trade in this week if you don't have him. Now, I know that some of us have already broken that rule and brought him in early, but if you haven't, you need to get him in because not only will he give you a good on-field scoring option, I think, at M8, even M7, if you haven't upgraded 2 of those spots yet. I think he's also got some really good job security and some great cash generation in him as well. And he may be someone that we just hold for the rest of the year, to be quite honest, because by the time he is probably ready to move, we should have a completed side, I think, or ideally by then anyway. So many options this week. We've got some pods that we can look at. So the buys, I've done something a little bit different. I have color-coded the players this week. So if you see a player that is coded in blue, that means they've got the round 12 buy. Green is around 13 buy, and if they're color-coded red, that means I've got the round 14 buy. So just a bit of a bonus just to help you out, a little bit of an extra visual just in case you're not across all of the buys at the moment. It may save you a little bit of time, maybe having to switch back to the AFL app or who's in round 12, 13, 14. So yeah, just a bit of a bonus for this week, and that will continue obviously up until round 14. So a couple of housekeeping things just before I start as well. Sorry, this has been a bloody long intro, hasn't it? But I will have the Q&A video out probably Friday morning. I'll record it Thursday night. So if you've got any questions, make sure that you put them on my round review video because that's a video that I base my Q&A off. So make sure if you've got any questions leading into this week or a comment to leave it on the round review video. And just as a bit of a thank you to the members, I will be making a members only video that will be out probably Saturday with my tiers for each of the lines. So I'll give my rankings for the defenders, mids, rucks, all the way up to the forwards, top 8, top 12, top 18. I'll give you a little bit of everything and obviously some reasoning behind where I rate particular players. So that's just a little bit of a bonus for members. And if you are interested in joining up, member only $3.99 a month, which is $1 a week, and 100% of the profits do go to Beyond Blue. So thank you very much to all the members that have signed up. And we do need to organise another Skype chat. So leave a comment down below, guys, when you are available for a chat this week. And we'll get together and, nut a few things out because I don't know exactly where I'm going with my trades this week. I've got a pretty good idea, but it's always good to bounce a few ideas off each other. So looking forward to that, guys. So I think I'll leave it at that. That's pretty much it for the intro. Let's start off with the 500k plus defenders. So as I mentioned before, we are bringing a little bit more color to the stock market videos for the next few weeks. Bit of a reminder down the bottom, you'll have the key on every page. Blue is around 12 buy, green is round 13, and red is round 14. So we have a total of 16 players that I'll take a look at in this price range. We have 7 that have the round 12 buy, and funnily enough, 4 out of my top 6 defenders in regards to my personal rankings do have the first buy. The next round, we have 4 players, round 13, and then in round 14, we have 5 players that will be unavailable. So you can only see 2 players in blue on this slide here, but if I quickly take it to the next one, we can see that the first 5 players are also in blue. So that's those 7 there. But if we go back to Hewitt and Doherty on the slide here, they'll both be missing round 12, but they are 2 players that are without a doubt in my top 6 defenders. So if for some reason you don't own either Hewitt or Doherty, I think that they are the perfect round 13 upgrade targets. They would have already had their bye. You're going to get them in for the next 2 to cover. Doherty have got the safest houses pick there. 3-round average of 105. Break even is pretty close to that. 103 still in the green. With Hewitt, break even of 89 and a 3-round average of 115. He came back into the side and it was like he hadn't had any time off at all. I thought he may be a little bit rusty, expecting maybe a 90 to a mid-90s type effort from Hewitt, but nah, he went straight back up to 100 plus. Again, one of their better players on the night. So I think he's an absolute must-have, and Doherty I think is very close as well. Unfortunately though, and I will go to the next slide and sort of group these players into buys, he does share it with the next 5. Now Vlastone, get it wrong every week. He's a bit of a pod option as he's coming, so I don't think, too many sides are going to be affected here. If I go down the bottom though to Jaden Short, very, very popular selection. I do have the Uber tag on him. Is there a chance that he gets DPP status? I'm not too sure, but there's a possibility if he spends basically all of his time in the midfield in the next couple of weeks. Then we've got Sinclair and Houston. So again, Houston, pretty much a pod. I'm not looking to select him. Sinclair is owned, I think, by about 12 to 15% of sides. Not exactly sure on the numbers there, but he is someone who I also rate really highly. And if he had a more friendly buy with my team situation, then he probably would have made his way into my side last week or even this week. But unfortunately, like many teams, I can't be carrying too many round 12 players. So if I go back now, we'll take a look at the green players. And this is the most friendly buy for defenders. We have Dawson there, Dale, Witherden, and Stewart. And to be honest, 4 pretty decent selections. So with Dawson, he's obviously got that defensive mid status, been in good form the last couple of weeks, was really tearing it up, particularly in the first half against Brisbane on the weekend, and then Fagan sent Berry to him to try to shut him down, and did do a half decent job, but Dawson still managed to score well, so a pretty good effort from him. I like what I see from Dawson. He's playing that role where he's playing further up the ground now, and that's what I do like. So if you're looking to bring in a player from round 13, or that does have the round 13 buy, then this is a bloke that you take a serious look at. And talk about taking a serious look at a bloke. Bailey Dale, such an underrated selection. I'm not going to go through all of his numbers because I did that last week. But he's got a 3-round average of 110, a break even of 108, and I've just got the safest houses on him there. Very similar to Doherty. You're pretty much what you're going to get each week from this bloke. It's going to be 100 plus on most occasions. Got a very, very high floor. Not the greatest ceiling that we've ever seen, but an ultra reliable option, and someone that I would actually recommend bring into your side. Then we've got Witho. We know what's happening down there at West Coast. This bloke will see a lot of the ball. Kick to handball ratio is great. Look, I'm not going to go again right into all these numbers because you know what you're going to get with Witho. A little bit of a risk given the fact that we've never seen a full season of premium scoring, but I think that this is probably the year where he really steps up and gets close to that category anyway. And Tommy Stewart, well, he's an absolute uber in regards to our defensive options this year. But the issue is you're paying $616K this week. He's got a break even of 176. Look, we've seen him score higher than that already this year, but I doubt whether or not it's going to happen again. He's going to score that high again. I would be leaving this for now. I know it's frustrating because he's got a great buy. If you're looking for a defender this week, you can still go him. Don't get me wrong. But if you compare that with someone like your Dawson, he's 532, even Dale's at 550. You are saving a fair bit of cash there, aren't you? So even with Dale, that's 66K, and I know for a fact that you'd be able to invest it elsewhere. But if you've got the coin, you're prepared to pay up, then absolutely go for it. He's going to be one of the better selections that you can bring into your side this year. But yeah, unfortunately, he will lose money. Well, I predict that he'll lose money in the short term. They're predicting he will lose 22,500, and he'll definitely, in my opinion, be under 600K next week. We'll then go to the red players now. So we've got Sis, Sorko, Rich, Crisp, and Pendle. So a couple of lines, couple of pies, and then the hawk that is absolutely flying at the moment. Just signed a long-term extension, so congratulations to you, sis. And hasn't he been on fire lately? Now, similar to, I suppose, like a Witho, a Stewart, you are paying up for him, $593. The difference between him and a Witho Stewart is that break even. So very much in the green compared to that 3-round average. But the question is, will he be able to maintain this? And surely not. I don't think he's capable of maintaining a 130 average. So even though that break even is in the green, it only takes one poor game from Sicily to really start dropping in price. But at the same time, it's really hurting you not having him in your side. So I think if you're looking for a defender with a high ceiling that's going to be reliable, you can bring him in. But if looking for more of a value option, then I think you can possibly even look at one of the next 3 blokes that we're talking about here if you are interested in getting in someone from the round 14 bye. We've got Zorko there. We've seen 3 tons in a row now. Rolls a little bit all over the shop on the weekend, but he's probably done enough now for me to have a lot more trust in him, definitely compared to what I had at the start of the year. Had zero trust in him at the start of the year, but I think his body's looking a lot better now. He's a damaging type play. He can hit the scoreboard, those low dart kicks. I'm on repeat with Zorko from probably the last week, but he is an option. Do you go with him? Do you go with the Sicily? Well, ultimately, you definitely want to go with the Sicily, but you are saving, over 50k if you do go with Zorko. Richie hasn't had the best season to date, but that 3-round average is in 3 figures. It hasn't been in 3 figures for a fair while now. Break even of 93, so you're pretty much getting what you pay for here. A potential value option, though, because I think he's better than his price suggests. Crispy, safe as houses, I've got on him. Almost 560k. 3-rounder, break even, absolutely spot on. So no value here, but I suppose you're just locking in a bloke that will play every game for the rest of the year, obviously apart from his bye, the most durable player in the comp. And then you've got the captain here, Pendles, obviously missed last week with a virus. He was a little bit crook, so I think he comes back into the side this week. Pretty similar to a Dale type there, isn't he? Same break even with 108, 3-rounder, 110 for Dale, 107 for Pendles. So he's an absolute champion of the past. He's got a pretty nice role, hasn't he? Plays down back, then pinch hits in the midfield, particularly later on in the game. So I do like Pendles as a selection. Just depends on if you rate him higher than a Crisp, Zorko, or a Rich type. Obviously, Sicily is the higher rated pick there. And we have no other blokes in the red. So, look, depending on how your structure's looking in regards to the buys, will probably dictate which option that you're looking to bring in. But for the members, as I said, I'll be giving my rankings in the members only video on the weekend. And a bit of a clue, as I mentioned, 4 of my top 6 are in blue. On to the defenders, 250 to 500k. And to be honest, there is not one bloke on the list here that I would recommend to trade into your side. I think it's all about who we look to either hold for the time being or who's ready to actually chop. So there's a couple of blokes here in blue. We've got Gibcus and Ridley. So with Gibcus, I think it's okay to hold or it's okay to chop. We see that break even 48 compared to his 3-round average of 82. It certainly looks like there's a little bit more to make there, 10,900. So you may want to keep on to him for this week and then even look to flip. Team dependent, up to you what you want to do there. And Ridley, he had one of his best scores of the season. I think it was a 115 over the weekend, but certainly have not got enough confidence to recommend trading him into your side. But as an owner, I think that you probably just hold and then he can cover for 13 and 14. It's not ideal, but it's not Whitfield type stuff at the moment. Look at that 3-round average. It's in 3 figures. It's 104 and the best on this list. Then we look at the blokes in green. So we've got McCartan and De Koning. So pretty much in the same boat, aren't they? We'll look at those 3-rounders, 71, 76, break even 13 and 32. Both got that DPP status available to be selected as a defender or as a forward. I just think that they are great options to hold on to for the time being, and then you can look to flip 1 or 2 of these blokes just before round 13. I would recommend to even look to keep one, just as that really solid bench coverage for the rest of the season. I know that some of us may not be able to afford that, but if you can, I think that would be a solid option for you. You got the Lizard there, a real pod, 3-rounder, 3 figures there, 100 on the dot, but you can't really bring the Lizard in, can you? Hingy, his break-even is in the red. I sold him last week. I certainly don't regret that. He's a potentially good scorer on field, but we haven't seen that in the last couple, so I think that you just move him on at this stage. And then you've got Jeremy Mcgovern, that ultimate pod type player. 95, had a red hot start to the season, but unfortunately I don't think that he'll be able to maintain that, although he has had a really solid season for the Eagles so far. You got Kitty Coleman there, again defensive forward status, simply a pass for me, really awkward price, pretty solid game last week, but you don't look to bring him in. Chapman I think is a hold for now. Keep in mind that he does have the potential to throw at a 40 to a 50 type score, so there's no guarantee that he's going to make that 20k like the projected rise states, but he has had a really solid game 2 weeks ago, a poor one last week. It's a bit of a mixed bag there with Chapman, so I wouldn't even blame you if you did want to move him on, but again, you could leave him as cover for the first couple, then flip. Noddy, I think, is an absolute sell. We know that he's injured. I think it's for about the next 5 weeks. Just get him out of your side, particularly with the buys coming up. We do need warm bodies. And Jeremy Howe, as that ultimate pod type selection, break even of 65. The 3-rounder is only 83, just throwing a name out there, but not really realistic option, I don't think. Nick Dacos, you can pretty much do what you want to do with him. If you want to hold on to him, that's fine. That's my plan. I'm going to hold him till he's buy and then flip then. Or else if you want to chop him now, also okay. You can either downgrade to someone like a Clark or a Karmas or a Thompson, or you can look him to upgrade up to one of your premiums. The Seagull, well, he's gone from pretty much a SuperCoach staple to an irrelevant player in 2022. Under 500k, 3-round average, that's under 100. His season average is even worse than that. His break-even is in the green, which is pretty much the only positive I can see to this pick at the moment. So I don't think that there's going to be anyone that's going to look to bring him into your side. Maybe if you're waiting for that last upgrade and he gives us 3 really solid weeks and something changes in the team dynamics, then you could look at him then, but until then, absolutely not for me. Bowie, he's got to be in the chopping block now, not going to be a keeper, 373k, break even is in red, there's a 31 point difference here, so I think it's time to move him on. Does have the last buy though, could keep on to him then flip. Rioli, defensive forward as we know, dream time at the G is this week, so I'm expecting a big game from him. Again, it's a bit of an awkward situation because I don't think he's going to be a keeper. That break-even is in the red, so if he does have a poor game this week, throws out a 60 type score, then he is going to start to leak cash, but hopefully he can have a big one for owners. Oh, and this bloke, Lockie Whitfield, I don't even want to talk about him. He's such a thorn in my SuperCoach side at the moment. Leon, I honestly thought, and this was silly me, I don't even know why I thought this, but I thought, look, it's Leon's last game. Surely he's just going to chuck Whitfield on a wing, let him do what he does best, and try to win this game of football. But no, he decided to hide this guy in the forward line. It's another terrible score. I had some hope a couple of weeks ago when we got a couple of 90s in a row, but all of a sudden, he's just gone to this. It's just super, super frustrating. The only thing we have going for this pick at the moment is the fact that Leon is now gone, out of the picture. And I hope that Spike has some sense about him and uses one of the most damaging players in the comp in a position where he can actually do some damage. Please, like, I'm getting desperate here. He's really, really starting to frustrate me. And look, I don't have the answers. Do you trade him out? I certainly wouldn't blame you. But I'm actually looking to probably trade out one of his GWS teammates this week. I think he's probably a higher priority for me. And people may argue against that. And that's understandable as well. So for me personally, I'm keeping the faith for one more week. Hoping that Spike McVeigh comes in, puts him in his right position, and he can start to score at least an 85 plus for me. At least an 85 plus. To be honest, I'll take that for now and then just look to upgrade him when my team's completed. Luke Ryan, he's a pass to me, not interested. And same as Sard, pretty easy pass. On to the defenders under 250k. We do have two bubble boys this week, which we'll talk about in a sec. But quickly, just touch on Jordan Boyd. I think his job security has actually slightly improved, given the fact that Williams will be out for the long term. But at 161,200, I just don't like that inflated price. Already gone up a little bit. Just wouldn't really make sense to bring in a round 12 rookie that's already gone up a little bit. And Flynn Perez, well, man, this is tough, isn't it? 41 through a 3-rounder. The break-even's 35. It is still in the green, but he's just been such a slow burn. So, look, you can hold or you can chop. Given the fact he does have the round 14 bye, he may be good to hold. But if you've lost patience or you're just searching for a downgrade option this week, then it is still okay to move him on. Now, back to the bubble boys up the top. So, I don't think there's going to be too many coaches this week that are looking to bring both of these blokes in, so it's probably a choice. Now, with Karmas, he is priced slightly higher as he did actually play one game last year. Scored 39 points in his first two games at AFL level this year. He's played as a forward in round 8 against a power, 9 touches, 4 marks, a tackle, 1 goal, 41 points. And then last week, really got our attention with a great start to the game, really exciting type player. Similar stat line to the week before, but the major difference was his scoreboard impact. He did kick the 3 snags, so has Gold Coast, West Coast and Geelong in the next 3. That's okay, but not great. Obviously, Gold Coast have really started to improve, had a good solid last couple of weeks. West Coast, they've got a couple of decent tools, Mcgovern and Parrish, and look, it's doubtful, I think, that he'll have an absolute day out against Geelong. So I assume he keeps his spot short term. I think Bruce is about another month away. Don't think Shacky's knocking the door down. O'Brien's out a couple of weeks. I know he's playing down back, not up forward. Look, when English returns, will they play him along with one of Martin or Sweet? Go with that 2-ruck combo? If so, I don't think that would bode too well for Buku, but look, it's a little bit of guesswork. We really only need him covering for the buys, so fingers crossed he can keep his spot. If he does get dropped, though, just before the buys, then it will be a little bit of a disaster because we are relying on this bloke to be playing on field. And their other option is Rory Thompson. So if you're new to the game, you may be thinking to yourself, geez, this bloke looks like a mature age rookie. And you'd be correct because he is 31 years of age, so has been in the system for a while. Unfortunately, though, has not played football for the last 3 years. His averages from the past are nothing to write home about, so I'll go all the way back from 2011 up to 2018. Remember, he did miss 2019, 2020, and 2021. So from 2011, 68.8, 66.2, 70, 59, 48, 56, 59, 49, and this year he's played the 2 games for an average of 44.5. So we know what his role's like. It's that key position, lockdown type role. He doesn't look to get the ball. He obviously looks at stopping his opponent from getting the ball. I know last week the majority of points from spoils. Traditionally, he's never been a high disposal winner. So expect between 5 to 8 disposals per game from Thompson. A few marks here and there. But the reason why you'd be looking to get Thompson into your side is probably due to his job security. If I was to select a player based on job security, it would be Thompson. However, if I was selecting a player based on scoring potential, do I think that probably Karmas is your man? Even though traditionally it is harder to score as a forward as opposed to a defender, we've just seen it from Thompson in the past. The fact that, well, what's his season best average would be in his, third year. That's a 69.2 where he played 21 games. And that's the other thing with Thompson is that obviously he's very injury prone. You know, game total 8, 5, 21, 19, 12, 14, 7, 17, and then missed 3 years. So that's always a risk with Rory Thompson as well. So it's a tough decision this week. I think that Karmas will be the more exciting player to watch, the more enjoyable player to have in your team. And Rory Thompson's one of those blokes that we just downgrade to pop down there at D8 for the rest of the season, and we just need him to score, a 50 for us for a couple of weeks during the buys and covers. So completely up to you, but they're two half-decent options that we can select this week. On to the midfielders over 500k, and we know what this is all about this week. Operation, who do we get in for steal? Now, we have a few blokes here in blue. We've got 5 in total. We've got Wines, Kelly, Parrish, Ross, and Walsh, who obviously have the round 12 bye. Quickly discuss him. We'll start with Wines up the top. Finally showed us his ceiling with a 155 last week. Next highest is only a 118, but in saying that, has been a consistent 100 to 105 type player. Apart from his injury-affected game in round 4 where he scored 53, his next lowest is a 96. We know what happened with Boki last week. Great to see this man step up. Is he a realistic trading option? Look, possibly, but the main concern for me is that lack of ceiling. But at 540,200, maybe some upside there with the pick. Jelly's had 2 150s in the last 3, now averaging 110 for the season, 40 touches versus Carlton, 7 tackles last week, which was his highest count of the year. Did his best for Leon to send him out on a good note, but unfortunately, not many of his teammates came along with him. And to be honest, I think a lot of it's Leon's fault for he decided to play particular players. So I'm not a huge fan of Jelly, but if you want to trust his body, if you think maybe a good coach means better things for him, then go for it, but definitely one not for me. Now, Parrish, he is my personal round 13 trading target. I think he finishes top 8. After a slow start to the season, has gone 100 plus in his last 6, and they've all been pretty decent 100. So 121, 113, 133, 111, 139, and a 109 last week. I think he should hover around his price, and he's a relative pod in only 9% of sides. And one thing we know with Darcy Parrish is the fact that he does have a massive ceiling. So I think by the end of the year, we will see one of those huge scores around the 170 to 180. Just a prediction that I've got with him. So could be an easy swap with Steele even this week, given the fact they share the same buy, if that works well for your structure. But personally, I'm just putting him on my watch list for now. I'm really going to target him in round 13. Ross, I'm just not interested in. Don't think he's a realistic selection, so I'm not even really going to discuss him. And Walshy, well, CBAs were down, but he did punch out his highest score of the year with a 149. Had 31 touches with good efficiency. Can still score okay on a wing, but it's not ideal. We do want to see this man on the inside getting as many CBAs as possible. So for me, it's probably going to be a decision between Parrish and Walsh after their bye. I think that they're two pretty solid options here, but I wouldn't be looking to trade them in yet. I'll just wait and then get every game you can from them till the end of the season. We've got a few blokes here in green now. So the first two fellas up the top, really interesting discussion, currently are both on track to be gaining DPP. And what does this mean? Well, it means massive things for our forward line. My rankings currently have these blokes certainly top 6. Absolutely top 6 for our forwards. So what does that mean for other players like Heaney, etc.? Well, I'm not too sure. Butters, picks like that, can we afford to hold them given the fact that these guys may be available? It's going to be a really good question. I'm really not too sure. So a risky move could be to even look to bring one of these blokes in this week in your midfield with the hope that they do gain DPP status. The risk is obviously that they spend a fair bit of time playing through the midfield the next 2 weeks and they are just under the cutoff point. So the cutoff point is 35%, and I believe they're both currently tracking at 37%. So we do have a couple of percent up our sleeve. It's not a move that I would advocate, but at the same time, if you look at someone like a Baz, he's costing you 532k with a break-even of 71, 3-rounder of 112. He is looking to go up around 20k just this week. So all of a sudden, he's going to hit the 550 mark. So it's a play that you could look to make. It's a risky one. But if you want to have a crack, I think I'm all good with that. I would probably be selecting Baz over the Bont. Why is that? Well, what is he's about 40k dearer Bont. His 3-round average is 109 compared to the 112. Throw 3 points off there. He's only looking to go up around the 5k mark this week if he hits that projected score of 109. I know if you look at past history, then Bont should be the obvious selection here. Completely understandable, but at this stage, if you're looking to bring one of these players in now, given the price point, I would probably look to go Baz. Jack Macrae, well, he's pretty much good to get in anytime. 620k, you're saving a fair bit of coin here. After some really high break-evens the last couple of weeks, that break-even has come all the way down to 104 now. So, all good to bring this man in. I think you've pretty much got to have him in your side. That's why I've got the buy now. Simple on him there. And Rory Laird, well, he's probably my most preferred trading target this week for Jack Steele. And why is that? He's just been ultra consistent, coming into his prime. Scores of 93, 143, 120, 123, 116, 123, and 142. They've come in wins, in losses, playing against poor teams, strong teams. He's only gone under 30 touches once this year, and he's still got a 120. So the role's not going to change. He finds a pill with ease. We know what Rory Laird's all about. The only thing that may be putting people off is the fact that he has been available to be selected as a defender in the past. But take that out of your mind. Don't let that influence your decision whatsoever. This bloke is a full-time midfielder now, and he's one of the best scoring midfielders in the competition. So I think he's a really, really safe trading option for Steele this week. It all depends, obviously, on your buy structures. And then the two blokes in red we've got here. Truck I bought in last week. Super happy with that. He's been at a really decent price for probably the last 4 to 5 weeks, hasn't he? Has disappointed us sometimes. Has given us a few nice scores. Gave me a really nice score last week. And that was expected against a pretty depleted West Coast side. This could have been massive as well. Left so many points on the table with his bad kicking. I think it might have been 4 behinds at the end of the day. So I think he's a perfect trading option. He's got a great buy. You can see here that there are only 2 players in red. So round 14, if you're looking pretty good there, then it's more than okay to bring one of these 2 blokes in. I do prefer Track over Andy Brayshaw. But Brayshaw as well, he's a pretty decent selection. That 3-round average of 102 is not looking great, but he does have a season average of 116, which does put him currently inside the top 12 midfielders. So I'm personally actually looking really closely at him this week. It's not because he's in great form. It's not because I think he's lock to be a top 6, even a top 8 midfielder. It's his price point and it's his buy. So at 557,000 for a bloke that's averaging 116 on the season, I still think that that's a really good deal. Even though that 3-rounder is only 102, the break-even is still in green as well. So, look, I've got concerns for the pick, without a doubt. Has thrown in a couple of pretty low scores. We have also seen his ceiling. We know what happened at the start of the year for those first 2 weeks, and that's when lots of people actually brought him into the side. So, I think he's an okay trade-in option. I think if you're looking to go one of the absolute uber elites, and Brayshaw isn't for you. But personally, I'm looking to round out my midfield and have him as my M8. I think that's an okay scenario if you've got the big 6. So I've already got the big 6 in my opinion anyway. And then I'll look to round it off with probably Brayshaw this week and then Parrish or Walsh the week after. But look, we've got a few options here. Let's take a look at the next page. Now you can see that the next slide here is dominated by blue. We've got Cripper, Green, Boak, Zeret and Steele. So we'll start with Cripper up the top. It was his lowest score of the year that wasn't injury affected with an 83 against the Giants. A sub 100 was always coming. Had such a consistent year to date. Winning the Brownlow in my opinion. So still a fine trading option if you don't have him. Tom the Green Bull, after a massive opening to 2022, scoring has been on a downwards trend. High score of only 115 in the last 6 weeks. And that time, he's had a 92, that 115, a 108, 107, 96, and a 75 last week, which was his lowest score of the season. I think our expectations for the young man may have been a little bit high at the start of the year, but hopefully he can bounce back. I don't think he's going to feature in the top 12 midfielders for averages by the year's end. Boak, now talk about a poor game. Over 4% of coaches traded him in last week, and he thanked them with a 36 against North, coming off a 149 last week. Only 13 touches and a single tackle. I've got the poo symbol there as well as the old man. Just a terrible game from Boakey. Expect him not to have a bad one this week. Zeret, well, 57 against Sydney last week. Copped a big hit from Rowbottom. I've got the symbol on there, watch and target. So we need to target this bloke, I think, after his bye. He's going to be at, close to 500k, would assume, after that poor score. So 3 rounder of 88, break even of 164. If he hits a ton this week, he's still going down around 30k. So definitely one to put on our watch list as maybe that cheap M8 option. We've got the 3 round 13 players here in Miller, Keys and Mills. So my man Took is back in town with a smashing 3 round average. Back to the Took of old. After averaging 1 tackle a game from rounds 3 to 5, he's averaged 6.5 per game in the last month. He's an absolute uber elite. He'll finish in the top 6 from here on out. So safely select him if you're looking for just an absolute gun of a midfielder. Benny Keys, 10th highest averaging mid, and hasn't gone under 100 all season. Only small hundreds in the last 3 weeks, with 103, 100 on the dot, and 106 last week. I'd be taking his teammate Laird over him, but he's obviously the cheaper option out of the two. And unfortunately, Callum Mills, he will not be coming down to the price that we were hoping or expecting. With Mills, we've seen the lows, 60, 70, 84, and we've seen the absolute highs, a 147, 214, and a 167 last week. So Supercoach Gold are actually projecting him to score 3 150s in the next 3. It's going to be really interesting to see how these two midfields match up on the weekend. Does he spend a bit of time on Cripps? Does his old teammate Georgie Hewitt spend a bit of time on Mills himself? I'm really not too sure. But with Mills, you're pretty much going to get an absolute monster or a sub sort of 90 to 80 type score. But unfortunate that he's not going to dip as much as we were thinking. But he will after this week. If he gets, just say, that 122, what his 3 round average is, he'll lose us about 20 odd K. But if he does get that projected score of 152, then he's only going down about 6. So unfortunately, not a heap of value here with Callum Mills. And the only man in red is my man Clary. Not much to say. He is an absolute uber elite. So whenever the time is right, you can bring this fella in. On to the midfielders, 250 to 500k. And we only have one man on the list who is in blue. That's Brad Crouch. I'll get back to him in a sec because my good mate Julian, coach of the Crazy Frogs, remember, was leading the competition for the first few rounds last year. He's asked about Crouch as a trade-in option this week, so we'll get back to him in a sec for you, Jules. We'll quickly go to the blokes in green. We've got Swallow, Warner, Rao and Danger. Swallow, I've just chucked up there as a pod. He deserves a little bit of recognition for what he's been doing lately. Under 400k, but I certainly wouldn't be looking to go there, but has been playing a little bit more through the midfield, just like the good old days. Chad Warner is an absolute pod who does also deserve a fair bit of recognition. This bloke is going to be an absolute super coach gun of the future. 491,300 with a 3 round average of 109, but is he going to be a top 10 to 12 type midfielder? I don't think so. Low break even, but wouldn't go there. Now, Matty Rao's a really interesting one. I've got the hold symbol there as well as the chop symbol there. I think it's fine to do either. A play could be to maybe hold him up until his bye and then flip to someone like a Parrish, a Walsh, one of these types, as I was mentioning before. I think that could be the play with Rao. That's probably what I'd be doing if I was a current owner. We look at the break even. It is in red there, but it is only 93. It's nothing over the top. His 3 round average is 88. It's only a 5-point difference there. So may leak a little bit of cash in the coming weeks. But he's pretty handy cover for that first buy if you are struggling there. And Danger, well, I've got the old man symbol there. I certainly think that his best Supercoach days are past him. I'll actually guarantee that his best Supercoach days are past him. But maybe keep him on the watch list. And yeah, I don't know. Probably just don't even look at Danger, to be quite honest. And then we got the two blokes in red there. Jason Horn-Francis, well, you can do what you want with him. Again, similar to Matty Rao, you can either hold because he can cover for the first 2 buys, so probably even handier in that regards. But at the same time, if you want to chop him, you can. I think lots of people have already got rid of Horn-Francis and moved him on anyway. And then Jared Berry, so was actually sent to Dawson last week. Brisbane are a pretty reactive type side when it comes to the tag, so they don't really actively look to tag at the start of the game, but if a player does get off the chain, then they will send someone like a Berry, and it usually is a Jared Berry to them, and that man was Jordan Dawson on the weekends, already mentioned. when I was chatting about him. So, look, I think that you've got to chop him at this stage. He is now starting to leak money. You could keep on to him to cover for the first two if you're absolutely desperate, but I'd be holding on to someone like a Dacos, for example, who can do the same job. So in my opinion, Jared Berry is I won't say a must trade out, but I would highly look to trade him out this week. So back to this man, Brad Crouch, who is in blue. So he's had a pretty consistent season to date, apart from the one down week. So scores this year, 112, 96, 131, 98, 98, 96, 49, so that's that low game, and then bounced back with a 111 and then a 140 last week. So he's coming up against his old mob this week. The Crows scored 124 against them in the only game that he's played against them. Then comes up against North, so pretty favourable there. Then Brisbane and Essendon, so probably only the one difficult opponent there. In the Lions, I've got a pretty solid midfield. The other three, I don't think he'll have a lot of trouble coming up against. But this is the issue with the pick. He's been pretty consistent this year, but he hasn't been in the past. And when we look at those scores, he has had the 5 under 100. And don't get me wrong, 96, 98, 98, 96, not too bad. But if we're bringing Brad Crouch into our side, he must be a keeper, and he must be, let's just say, a top 15 midfielder. I don't think that he is going to be that. Now, last year, if you look back to his 2021 scores, he had a couple of nice ones, that a 137, a 141, but then he had some absolutely putrid scores, a 32, a 33, and a 55. And this has been the issue with him historically. He's been able to give us some really nice ones, but then when he goes low, he does go really low. We've seen the one example this year, 49. And when we think about some of those uber elite midfielders like your McRae's and these types, they can give us a low score, but a low for McRae is an 80 to 90 type score. With a Crouch, we're talking 30s, 40s to 50s. So I just couldn't cop that in my team. Those midfield spots, we've got 8 of them. They're like absolute gold. So look, in my opinion, Jules, I wouldn't be going for Crouch. Look, he's an absolute bargain basement buy. With Steele out of the side, he could certainly step up. I can see potential in the pick, but personally, I think it's a big risk. Look, the perfect way to describe this, it's a risk versus reward pick. So if you believe in that high reward, you think you can step up in Steele's absence, go for it. But personally, I'm not overly confident with the pick. On to the midfielders under 250k. So the first thing that probably stands out here is the lack of red. So the only bloke we have with around 14 buy is Josh Ward, and a lot of coaches have already traded this bloke out. We know that he's not going to be available for the next 2 weeks due to concussion protocols, and he was omitted from the side. So A, the fact that he was omitted is not a great sign, and B, the fact that he will be missing for the next 2 weeks, well, that doesn't fill me with great confidence either. So I think that Josh Ward is now basically a must trade out option. Ideally, we want to keep him up until that round 12 buy. Even if he does leak a little bit of cash, we can live with that given the fact that he will be covering during round 12 and 13. But as I said, unfortunately at this stage, I just don't think that it's realistic to be able to keep on to him. We'll now have a quick chat about the blokes in blue, obviously missing round 12. You've missed the boat on all 4 of these players. Hobbs up the top, I've got the yin yang with the tick symbol there. After the first 3 weeks, this was not looking good. Looked like a big mistake trading him in. But all of a sudden, he has majorly turned that around, and his break-even now sits at negative 41. So if he can hit a pretty modest projected score of 56, he's going to rise over 40k this week. And I do think that he is a half-decent on-field option at either M7 or M8, depending on how deep you're running there at the moment. The next 3 blokes, we know were on the bubble last week: Hamilton, Carroll, and Rioli. And of course, I picked the worst too. Hamilton did score the best last week. I think even his job security moving forward is looking pretty solid, almost better than these two, even though we do know that Rioli is a guaranteed starter for Dreamtime at the G this week. With the new coach, I'm not sure how that affects Hamilton, but we know what his good traits are. Good running ability, pretty hard at the ball, gives a good contest. So if you did pick up Hamilton last week for 102k, he was the cheapest option and probably the best option. Things could change, but after the first 3 weeks, yeah, congrats if you did select Hamilton. Carroll, score of 27, extremely poor from him. Job security moving forward after his performance on the weekend. Look, I'm really not too sure. I think he does stay in, at least for this week. And then the coaching staff will obviously reassess after watching how he performs. But yeah, just super disappointing. Didn't get to touch a football very often. When he did, it certainly didn't turn to gold. And Mr. Rioli, I tell you what, this was just a shocker from him, an absolute shocker. First of all, time on ground was extremely low. At halftime, it was 47%. And honestly, what can the man do in that amount of time? When he did get on the ground, unfortunately, and this may have been a big reason why his time on ground was so low, he just couldn't do anything right. You know, dropped an absolute sitter in the goal square. Should have been an easy mark and then an easy conversion. Caught holding the ball a couple of times, a couple of free kicks against. Basically 0% efficiency. He finally got 2 touches. I was like, yes. Unfortunately, 0%. So nothing went right for the young man after a pretty solid first couple of weeks. That break even is now 20. So that should have been in the minus if it was a half decent score. I'm even talking in the 40s to the 50s. All I needed from this fella was a couple of 55s in a row to make me that 100k at least. But he's gone out, given us a 7. And that cash gen is really going to halt. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Rioli moving forward. We expected that he was going to have a high variation in scores, particularly with the role that he plays. But a 7, I just didn't see on the cards. But hopefully he does bounce back, particularly this week. It's a really important game for him. We'll skip Clark for a sec. We'll go to Haitley. Ship sailed here. Look, great break even, negative 36. But you're just simply not going to go there, are you? Nevitt is on the bubble, but that's always dangerous given the fact he is coached by Chris Scott and he plays for Geelong. I assume that Cooper Stevens would probably get the nod ahead of him last week. That wasn't the case. He's got a negative break even of 4. I don't think that we'd probably look to select him. And Rob McComb, well, a little bit disappointing last week after the 70-odd that he gave us a week before, but still, that break-even is in the negatives. You compare that to someone like Rioli, who we only traded in last week, and even at Carroll, 15 and 20. When you see a negative break-even for Robbie, that's all good in the hood. So my plan is to most likely upgrade him just before the bye. I think that that's the plan because hopefully he can make about 150k, if not just under. He would have made, close to 120, 125k after this week if he can go around a mid-50 type score. So all good with Robbie at the moment. We just hold him for sure. And then we get to this man, Greg Clark. An absolutely ideal selection this week. And I'm going to go as far to say that he is a must-have rookie. We all had him at the start of the year before he got injured. He came in a couple of weeks, well, it was a few weeks ago now, wasn't it? Debut game, 100 points, absolutely fantastic. Obviously missed a week with the health and safety protocols. Came back last week, mid-60s type score. Nothing fantastic like we saw in the first week. Played a bit of a lockdown role at times as well. But this man does know how to find the football. I think he's going to be a terrific selection. Chuck him there, similar to a Hobbs at either M7 or M8 for now, preferably M8. And you can go 7 deep in your midfield. I think he's a really safe option there. He'll make some great cash and we'll simply be able to hold this bloke, I think, for the rest of the season because by the time that he has fattened up and that break even does reach his average, I'm pretty sure that most coaches will have a completed team. So he's going to be the ideal bloke to have his coverage at M9 by the end of the year. And if we do need someone to just provide us with a nice on-field score if one of our primos do go down, then he's a great bloke to have. So make sure that you do have Greg Clark. Many coaches already brought him in a little bit earlier, and he's the one bloke that you can actually break the rule for. We don't need to worry about breaking any rules now because he has played the 2 games. So long story short, get him into your side. On to the rucks, and we can see a couple of blokes in blue here that are both very, very popular options, and I think that many of the top sides are running with these 2 guys on their side, and it's Sam Hayes and Braden Pruce. So ideally, we'd love to have these 2 blokes have the round 14 bye so that they can cover for the first 2, then we can flip them on the last buy, but it is what it is. With Bruce, do we even look to trade him out? We look at that 3-round average, 111, and we compare that to Max Gawn all the way down the bottom with a 109. Now, do I think that Gawn's average is going to stay at 109? Certainly not. This bloke will bounce back, but we certainly at least need to ask ourselves a question: is it worth actually upgrading from Bruce to Gawn? Now, if projections occur, it looks like we'll be able to upgrade from Bruce to Gawn for about 80 to 100k in a couple of weeks. So a play may be, depending on how Bruce goes and depending how Gawn goes in the next couple of weeks, to actually flip Bruce on his buy. That's round 12. Get Gawn in, because, well, with my situation anyway, I'm running with a guy in green. So the play for me would be to, well, possibly this is, look to trade out Bruce in round 12 and bring Gawn in. That way I'll have Gawn playing and also Witts playing during round 12. Round 13, obviously Witts won't be playing, but Gawn will be and Hayes will be. And then when it comes to round 14, Gawn will be out, but both Hayes and Witts will be available. So if you're in the same boat as me and you're running with a Bruce, Witts, Hayes combo, then that could be a play that you could look to do yourself. The blokes in green now, we've got Strundika, Jamison, Dixon. So 3 blokes from West Coast. Would not be looking to obviously bring any of these blokes into your side. Jamison's obviously gone up a little bit of coin. Strundika, well, I thought he'd keep his spot originally a couple of weeks ago, but he hasn't, so job security always going to be a major concern there. Dixon, we're probably looking to chop. I think that break even is now in red, 55, so I'd be looking to chop him. But remember, we've also got the scenario where you could look to bring him into your ruck line once Sam Hayes maxes out and you're looking to trade him on. So certainly an option there if you're looking to do that. We've got Tim English, so he's not going to be available again this week. Got a bad illness, apparently. So if you've held on to him, it's will definitely been the wrong move, but you're going to have to be a little bit more patient. Certainly an upgrade target for us after the bye. And Jared Witts, I've just got the fire symbol on him because his 3-round average, 127, is the highest in the comp. Look, we look at English with 129, obviously hasn't been playing for over a month now, so Witts probably the standout option at this stage. And then the blokes in red, we've got Begg, not interested in. Goldie, I'm not sure when Cherry's due back, but he's been playing pretty well. Really nice 3-rounder there with 123. Jackson played better than what Gawn did over the weekend, but at 407,700, break even of 86. That's in the red. You may just want to hold him for now, I think. Hold him until the buys and then look to possibly flip him to one of the Dogs or Swans forwards. And then we've got, obviously, Sean Darcy, the big man Shrek. Oh, Eno, I feel for you, brother. Just had a terrible week. So, was outclassed by my man Witsy. I thought it would be a really, really even game from these two. But without a doubt, Jared Witts did take the chocolates. So, yeah, bad luck, Eno. Hopefully he's going to bounce back this week for you, mate. And Maxi Gawn, well, if you brought him in the last couple, geez, you're really, really unlucky because, well, obviously he had the knee complaint and then it was just a really poor score versus West Coast. Spent a little bit of time, well, a fair bit of time up forward. Did spend some time off the ground. I think that he's at about 28% forward time, so I doubt that he reaches the 35% requirement by the time the new DPP is given out. But there's a slight chance if he's played basically exclusively forward for the next week or two that he reaches that, but I don't think that that'll happen. But look, with Gawn, as I mentioned before, I think that he will bounce back. The break-even of 221 is certainly scary for owners. I've had a couple of questions this week. Do we trade out Max Gawn? And I certainly don't think that you do. I would certainly keep faith in the man. You know that he's going to lose money, and that is frustrating. But as tempting as it is to go down to someone like a Witts, Gawn is simply the better player. And if you've got to choose between the two, you know, out of Witts and Gawn, it's certainly got to be Gawn. So I would hold the faith. But as non-owners, this is absolutely fantastic for us. You could make that move like I was considering with Bruce, depending on how your buy structure's looking, or else he may be at a premium price even after his buy. He may be the perfect upgrade target then. So don't panic if you're an owner, but as a non-owner, absolutely fantastic. Onto the forwards, 500k plus, and there's no representation of red here. We've got a couple of players in blue, and then the 3 players in green. So we'll start off with the 2 players in blue. Obviously, Richmond teammates Lynch and Dusty. Well, Tommy Lynch, the highest 3-round average in the comp, if you don't mind. Some mammoth scores in the last 3 with a 167, 184 and a 125. Has kicked 17 goals in 3 weeks and averaged over 10 marks a game. Now, keep in mind, that was against West Coast, Collingwood and Hawthorn. Against more able teams, he scored 38 versus Carlton, a 67 against the Saints, and a 44 versus Melbourne. So, seems like he does like to beat up on the weaker teams, and consistency is not something we associate with Tommy. So, a big no from me, but has made 178k in quick time, and more than a lot of the rookies that we started with this year as those cash cow options. And Dusty, look, I simply wouldn't be investing in him at the moment. Too many question marks, too many unknowns with the pick. 509,600. I can see why I may be attracted to him. It's the name. He's back in town now. Played pretty well on the weekend, but too many safer options for mine. And then we got the 3 blokes in green. So we've got Libba, Parker and Dunkley. All have DPP status as mid-forwards. Libba, I do like as a selection, but the issue that I think we're going to face is how many dogs, how many swans can we actually fit in our forward line. So out of all the options that we may be presented with come round 12, and I am including Baz and Bontempelli in this lot, then Libba's probably the bloke that I would look to fade. When he plays through the midfield, attends a large amount of CBAs, terrific, scores well, great tackling type player, just an absolute bull. We know what he brings to the table every week, but if he does spend a little bit more time in the forward line out of that midfield, then we know what happens to his ceiling, goes completely down. So with a 3-round average of 107, break-even of 85, there's certainly value there. They're projecting him to go around a 120, which will allow him to rise about 15k, get closer to that 560 mark. But personally, I've got him towards the bottom of the list when it comes to dogs forwards. Lukey Parker, hasn't this bloke been getting some attention on the weekends? And look, not SuperCoach relevant or stock market relevant, but there was a comment made by Chrissy Johnson, and I love Chrissy Johnson, one of my favourite players of all time. Obviously started at Fitzroy. I'm great mates with his brother Adam, and obviously won the 3 premierships at the Lions. But he made a bit of a funny comment, something along the lines of, the next time Parker gets out of a contest, better watch himself, or he wouldn't want to be getting out of any sort of physical confrontation. But I think it's a pretty silly comment, because this man loves the contact. Avoiding contact is not in Luke Parker's DNA, and I don't think that will be an issue with him in the future or any day, I don't think. But look, as a SuperCoach selection, I do like him. Has been a little bit inconsistent at times during this year, but does have a massive ceiling. We know that most of Sydney's forwards are back. Heaney's been spending a heap of time up forward, not much time through the midfield, so I think that means even better things for Luke Parker. You should have definitely picked him up a week or 2 ago. That would have been ideal. You're not getting the value now, but I still think he's going to finish very close to the top 6 from here on out. And Josh Dunkley, I think we've all got him by now. Is he going to be the F1 by the end of the year? I'm not exactly sure, but he's going to be close enough. Pretty much a must-have in our forward lines. Onto the forwards, 250 to 500k, and we do see a pretty even distribution with the colours here. So we've got 3 players missing round 12, 3 missing round 13, and then the 4 players missing round 14. But generally, when we look at our forward lines, round 13 is the toughest buy, because we do have players like Dunkley, Heaney, Parker, even in English, which are pretty popular selections. So I would be most concerned about my round 13 buy, but that might be just me personally. We'll start off with the guys in blue. We've got Curnow, Bolton and Gresham. So Charlie, we've seen some huge scores from him this year, as well as some pretty low ones. He's a key forward. That's what we expect. But at 445,000 with a break-even of 49, he has been a magnificent selection for us this year. Looking to go up 20k if he can get close to the ton. Wouldn't recommend him as a trade-in option though, but we certainly keep if we own. Bolton, now, is a real burn man from last year, isn't he? But if we take a look at that 3-round average, it is the highest out of any player that we see on this slide. The break-even 76, his projected score is only 82, so looking to go up a little bit of cash, but I certainly would not be looking to invest in Bolton. He's got that first buy, as I said, after he's had it. If he's still looking around the 110 mark for that 3-round average, I think it's fine to bring him in if you'd like to. But just a few question marks, and consistency I think is a big issue with Bolton. And Gresham, I think that we just hold for now and maybe look to flip after the buys. You could get rid of him now if you're keen on another player, but it is awkward given the fact that Gresham is not going to be a keeper and he does have that first buy. Ideally, if he was in red here with a round 14 buy, we could keep him up until then and just flip him at the ideal time. So pretty team dependent this one. Do what we want to do with Gresham, but certainly don't think he's going to be a keeper. The three blokes in green, we've got Duncan, who we've seen the best of and the worst of this year. I've got the Mr. Burns symbol there, the old man symbol, as well as the binoculars. We just keep a watch on this bloke, and if things turn around, we may look to invest in him towards the end of the season where we don't need him to get through so many games. Treloar, massive one on the weekend against his old mob. Best on ground, 150 points, and he really wanted to put his best foot forward. So with all the other dogs, mids and forwards that we have at our disposal this year, I've got him probably right down the bottom of the list, mainly because of his durability. That 3-round average is only 103 as well, and keep in mind he did have that 150 last week, so it really does put into perspective how his last month's been. And Rochelle, I think he's an absolute trade out. We see that break even. It's in the red, it's 70. Look, is he capable of getting a 70? Sure he is, but we simply haven't seen this lately. His scoring has gone right downhill. I would be jumping ship now with this pick. Darcy Cameron, I think the ship sailed now. The best time to get him in was 2-3 weeks ago before his price rise, but still a little bit of value here. Break even of 44. Didn't play as well last week as what we saw the previous 2 weeks. Didn't quite manage to hit the ton. But I think he's been an okay selection if you have owned him for the last couple. Don't invest now, though, I don't think. Not a good idea. But remember, come round 12, he will have DPP, which may be pretty handy for us. That may actually sway you to actually trade him into your side. Not me personally, though. Will Brodie, absolutely fantastic. I've got the keeper symbol on him. We've got Cogs that we need to get rid of. Nick Martin that we need to get rid of. Possibly people looking to get rid of a Butters. So my plan is to just keep him for the rest of the year. Has a nice buy with that round 14, cover the first two, and I'm pretty safe for forwards in red, personally, in my side anyway. Pat Lipinski, I don't think is a keeper. I've got either the hold or the chop symbol there. I know George got rid of him last week, had a half-decent game. He's not going to be a keeper, though. My suggestion would be to keep him up until his buy, and then flip after that for one of the Dogs players, or one of the Sydney players, if you don't already have them. And Zack Bailey, Zack the Rat, one of my favourite players in the comp, as you know, just simply too inconsistent. Has some really, really big games where he hits the scoreboard. Other games he might give you a 60 type score, which means for me, and I say this most weeks, you know how much I love the man, it hurts me to say he's just not a relevant option for us this year. In another couple of years, I think he may be, but at this stage, there are way too many better options to consider Zack. Now, the next slide we see here is dominated in blue. We've got Rosie, Martin, Butters, Taranto, Cogs, and Toby Green. So the man up the top, Rosie, certainly a pod, looking to go up 20k this week, but keep in mind his projected score is 130. We haven't seen too many of those from Rosie so far, so definitely something to keep in mind. I think that he's okay to get around the 100, so should still go up in coin, but possibly not as much as 20. Nick Martin, so a lot of chat about him this week. Is it time to move him on? I don't think it is. Look, that break even is in red. Fair enough. But look, he's been so reliable for us so far. A pretty poor score last week. I think it was his poorest score of the year. I'm going to keep faith in Nick Martin, and I'm going to be looking to move on another bloke in blue this week. But look, if you do want to move him on, I think it's still okay at the same time. Zachy Butters finally hit a ton against North Melbourne. What we wanted to see. He was spending a lot of time on the bench. I forget which quarter it was, but I'm looking at the time on ground going, geez, get him on. I think it was about 9 to 10 minutes. So that hurt his score as well, but then did come back on and score pretty well during the quarter. So at 420,100, his break even is in red with 91, but he's more than capable of achieving that, I think, anyway. I don't know if he's going to be a top 8, even a top 10 forward at this stage, particularly given the fact we do have some of these dogs that are likely to get DPP status. But I think if you're a current owner, I would be holding for now and just reassessing possibly after the buys with this one. Taranto hasn't been in great form lately. That 3-rounder only sits at 83, so with a break-even of 121, we simply watch him and possibly look to pick him up a little bit later on if he can hit some form. This is probably the man that we do need to move on this week. It's Stephen Connellio. Terrible score last week. Has been getting some CBAs though, which is the interesting fact. I think it was his 3rd highest count of the year last week. But with that high break-even, we've got 2 choices. You either commit to hold, I think, or you flip him now. There's no point looking to flip him just before his buy, because that price tag of 429,000, that will be definitely under 400, I think, anyway. Look, he's got a huge ceiling. We've seen a massive score from him already this year, so I'm not saying that the break-even is 100% not achievable, but it's unlikely, I think, that he'll hit the mark, particularly based off that 3-range average at 72, but we know that he's got a new coach coming in. Could mean different things. I'm not too sure, but he is playing that role pretty well. Poor last week, but generally playing it pretty well. And Toby Green, massive break-even, 173, 3-round average of 67. After a pretty impressive first week back, hasn't done too much, so I don't think he's going to be too relevant, unfortunately. We've only got the one bloke in green here, which is Isaac Heaney, 497,800. I would not be looking to invest in Heaney at the moment. He's going to be top 6, top 8. I think he's got a pretty good chance, but he may get pushed out with the new blokes that come onto this line. And we've got Taron Thomas and Jordan Gurry, the 2 blokes in red. Thomas would not be looking at whatsoever. But look, it may be a bit of a sneaky move, maybe after his buy, if you're still at a decent price, if you've completed most of your side, to maybe bring him in as that, M9 to F7 type option. Maybe he can be a swing man and provide good coverage for the rest of the year. And Jordan Gurry, well, I'd actually recommended to take a close look at him a few weeks ago, but we just haven't seen anything positive from this pick. A few excuses with the gastro, those free kicks against, had a game where I think he had 11 clangers. Things just aren't working for this bloke at the moment and not looking like a top 10 forward, in my opinion, the way he's currently playing. And we'll finish with the forwards under 250k. Corey Durden, the man in blue, 239,700, now with a 3-rounder of 64. That was looking dire a few weeks ago when he got a sub 20, but now he's sort of reset that break even. Only at 6 with a projected score of 50, he's going up almost 20k, so he's a definite hold for now. The next 2 blokes in green, we've got Evans and Roses there. Evans on the bubble, but a pass for me. I don't think that he even plays. Job security is always going to be an issue with him moving forward. And Roses as well. Well, I've got the chop or the hold there. This is really team dependent. I'm possibly looking to chop him this week just because I want to hold on to someone like Mcdonald over Roses, purely given the fact that he's got that round 14 buy and he can cover the first 2, and that's where I've got most of my problems. So, if possible, I suppose you look to keep on to Roses, but if not, I still think that he's fine to chop if you need to. And then we've got the 4 blokes here that are all in red. So McGuinness, I suppose a little bit similar to Durden, has reset that break even only at 4. So again, almost an identical scenario there between McGuinness and Durden in regards to projected score and rise. We've got Callow there, absolute pass man in the bubble, don't think that he plays. Paul Curtis has not been setting the world on fire. Unfortunately, when we brought him in, he's had his lower type games, but he'll be a slow burn, but can hopefully cover for the first 2 buys, and that's all that we want from Curtis. Then you look to flip him before round 14. And Conor Mcdonald, as I touched on before, I think is a perfect guy to try to hold. He's got that DPP status, he's got the last buy. The only issue here is the fact that he has been the sub. I've got every symbol in the world there, haven't I? It's okay to pretty much do anything. You can hold, you can move him on if you want, but being the sub, it's always a risk of a possible 8 to 10 type score if he comes on late in the game. I think it was the second quarter from memory. You may correct me on that. I may be wrong. Don't take that as gospel, but it is tough to obviously score when you are the sub. So, look, I'd love him to just either get properly managed, so don't play him at all. Don't play him as a sub. Just give him the week off. Give the young man a rest, or else start him in the 22. It's really hard when he is starting as a sub, but ideally we want to hold on to him and then just flip him before his buy in round 14. So that's it for now, guys. Hope you have a ripper of a week. Good luck with your trade-ins and your trade-outs, and I'll see you soon in the Q&A. Cheers, bye.